Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today for another Twilight Zone video on my Twilight Zone ranking series, where I rank every episode of the original Twilight Zone from my least favorite to my favorite. Today I'm going to be talking about number 86, You Drive, written by Earl Hamner Jr. and directed by John Brahm. This is a season 5 episode, and as always there will be spoilers. So, while I think You Drive is a pretty good episode, it's definitely got a premise that's way out there even for Twilight Zone, but it mostly works for me. It's one of those episodes where I feel like everything is just kind of mostly fine, solid, but not great, except for the ending, which is really good and elevates it a bit. So this one's about a man named Oliver Pope, and he's involved in a hit-and-run accident where he leaves the scene, and he thinks that he's going to get away with this, except that his car turns on him. Yes, that is really the plot of this episode. So Edward Andrews gives a solid performance. He's one of those actors that I feel like is always entertaining, and the rest of the cast is fine. So this episode starts with our main character Pope, and he's driving, and he eventually hits a kid on a bicycle, and instead of helping him out, he leaves the scene hoping not to get caught, which is definitely not a good thing to do at all. And we also learn later on that the kid passes away, which is very sad. So Pope goes home, and his wife notices he's acting kind of edgy. Of course, she doesn't know what he did or anything about the accident. He also is visited by a co-worker named Pete Radcliffe, who will be important to the plot. And Pope is also giving Pete a hard time. He's just in a bad mood in general. He says he doesn't feel well, things like that. So eventually this other man, Pete, is identified by a witness as a person who hit the kid, even though we know that's not true. We know that Pope did it. And Pope just goes along with it. He does nothing to get Pete out of this as well. And if we haven't figured it out yet, Pope is really not a likable character at all. So now Pope thinks he's in the clear because of what's happened, except that his car starts doing all kinds of weird things. It even eventually starts playing a radio report reminding Pope of the boys passing away. Then things get even more strange as Pope's wife is driving the car, and it eventually stalls out on her. So eventually Pope just decides, I'm not going to use the car right now. So everything in the episode up till this point is fine. I don't think any of it is great, but it's all just good, it's interesting, and it moves along well. Then things get even more interesting and more entertaining. So Pope is walking along the road, and the car starts following him and eventually chasing him. It's an absolutely ridiculous, but to be fair, also entertaining scene. I really didn't totally buy it, to be honest, but the way it's done. But it's fun to watch. So eventually Pope gives up, he gets in the car, and the car drives him to the police station where he has to turn himself in. So a fitting ending that fits with the themes of the episode, even if it's a little bit out there, even for the Twilight Zone. So I do think if you can buy into the premise, this is a solid, entertaining episode. I love how the car drove Pope to the police station at the end, but the rest of the episode is just good and not amazing in my opinion. So that's why for me, You Drive comes in at number 86. Still a pretty good episode to watch with an interesting message behind it. So as always, feel free to let me know what you thought of this episode, You Drive, if you liked it or not. Thanks very much for your support, and thanks for watching.